November 20th, 2025. No press release, no ceremony. Textron Aviation quietly deletes 2 pages from its website, the Bonanza G36 and the Baron G58. 80 years of continuous piston production erased in a single HTML edit. And here is what Wichita will not tell you. It was the first confirmed kill on a longer list. 10 Beechcraft models are converging on the same deadline. By 2029, the Federal Aviation Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Parts Counter, and the Bean Counters will have quietly agreed on one thing. These airframes are done. The question is, which one is in your hangar? A digital record, time-stamped and archived, catches the moment the support for 2 icons vanished. Between 22:34 and 00:12 Coordinated Universal Time on November 20th, 2025, Textron Aviation deleted the Bonanza G36 and Baron G58 from its website. No redirect, no explanation. 1 hour, 2 missing links, and 80 years of piston lineage reduced to a 404 error. The only evidence left was a Wayback Machine snapshot, Exhibit A, showing the listings intact just hours before. The next capture was gone. Inside Wichita, the corporate line arrived hours later. A dealer email stamped 15:08 Coordinated Universal Time quoted a product investment plan and warned that no new factory build slots would open. The press release, quietly issued after the deletion, repeated the phrase. Textron said it would finish the last handful of orders, then shift everything to the Denali turboprop. The statement promised continued parts and engineering support for owners, but the product pages never reappeared. The numbers tell the rest. 5 Bonanzas and 2 Barons shipped in 2024. 4 Bonanzas and 2 Barons in the first half of 2025. Single-digit deliveries for 2 of the longest-running certified piston lines in the world. GAMA shipment reports confirm it. These were already ghosts walking. The production line, once the backbone of Beechcraft's piston legacy, was running on fumes. Textron's investor deck, filed months before the public ever noticed, spelled out the priorities: focus on Denali, streamlining piston portfolio. The Securities and Exchange Commission 10K filing lists the Denali as a capital allocation priority. Every document points to the same conclusion. This was not a manufacturing pause, this was a retreat. The Bonanza and Baron were not just discontinued, they were erased, mid-shift, with no ceremony and no warning. For owners, the message landed like a punch to the ribs. No press conference, no legacy page, just a silent edit, a dealer memo, and the sound of the parts counter getting quieter. The factory line that supplied spares, engineering, and resale value was gone in a single HTML change. This is how a fleet dies, not with a bang, but with a silent surgical cut, and a promise that support will continue until the next deadline arrives. A stack of receipts and docket numbers builds the case. The FAA's policy clock started ticking long before Textron erased the Bonanza and Baron from its website. The Eagle Initiative, launched under federal mandate, lays out the sequence. First, the 2024 FAA Reauthorization Act, Section 827, gives the agency explicit power to phase out leaded avgas. The text authorizes a working group, and it sets a hard end to 100 LL manufacturing by 2030 for the lower 48 and 2032 for Alaska. The authority is not theoretical. The draft FAA Transition Plan, filed January 12, 2026 in the Federal Register, gives the phase dates teeth. Phase 1, test sites and limited rollout. Phase 2, regional expansion. Phase 3, full cessation of 100 LL sales and manufacture by December 31st, 2030. Alaska gets a 2-year extension, but the rest of the country faces a non-negotiable deadline. These are not goals, they are draft orders carrying the weight of statute until the final rule is inked. The policy does not stop at fuel. The FAA's no-crack doctrine, rooted in a 1996 directive, strips away any tolerance for known structural flaws. The language is blunt. Any documented spar crack, any visible fracture, is grounds for grounding. Airworthiness. Directives like AD 95-0403 for Bonanza and Barron spar webs, 94-20-04R2 for the V-tail Bonanza, and 2001-13-18R1 for the T-34. Mentor. Leave no room for negotiation. The ADS require inspection, mandatory repairs, or outright removal from service if compliance is not met. Each directive is a deadline stamped in the logbooks, not a suggestion. Service bulletins Beech A2170 for the Bonanza wing spar and Beech B4592 for Barron cabin corrosion pile on. The FAA Notice of Intent FAA 2029-08001, published March 15, 2029, consolidates these. Fail to comply and you lose your spot on the Part 23 Continued Airworthiness List. The Policy Memo Forced Retirement Criteria, Memo FR 2029-02, spells it out. OEM production gone for 12 months, missed AD deadline, or parts support index below 30%, and the aircraft is delisted. No appeal, no workaround. Compliance matters. The list of affected models is not rumor. Bonanza G36, Barron G58, Bonanza V35, Model 18, Queen Air, Travel Air, Musketeer, Sundowner, Duke, Starship, each one logged by AD number, each one tied to a compliance clock. The regulatory receipts are public, docket FAA 2029-08001, AD 9504, SBA 2170, and more. These documents do not care about nostalgia. They care about compliance windows and parts inventories. The forced retirement process is a chain reaction. Policy triggers an AD triggers parts demand, parts scarcity triggers removal from the airworthiness registry. The system is built to grind down the unsupported, not to wait for a formal ban. The evidence is all time-stamped, docketed, and archived. The FAA's own memos and dockets make the process clear. When the last compliance window closes and the last part is gone, the aircraft is erased from the registry. The 2029 kill list is not a rumor or a theory. It is a matter of record enforced by statute and backed by receipts. A 160,000-line manifest, stamped and notarized by the Marana Town Clerk, lists every last Starship part sold off in January 2004. 12 tractor-trailers, each loaded with crates marked SNB ST2003, rolled out of the Evergreen Air Center under a single buyer, Robert Scherer. The auction notice in the Marana Gazette did not mince words. Complete Beech and Starship inventory, all airframe and avionics, to be sold as is. The photo beside it catches 4 stacked crates, serial plates still visible, waiting for a future that never came. The Starship was not retired by regulatory decree. It was disassembled, crated, and liquidated. Raytheon's internal bulletin, Service Bulletin 573329, laid out the threshold in black and white. Spare part kit production is not economical for a fleet below 500. The memo from Raytheon's fiscal year 2003 review, released under the Freedom of Information Act, projected $12 million in savings if new part fabrication ended. That was the cost trigger. The factory did not pause. It pulled the plug, then paid to have the leftovers hauled away. Scherer's purchase was not a rescue. It was triage. The Starship fleet dropped from 53 built to 6 flying by 2020. Rockwell Collins pulled Proline for support. Raytheon stopped making structural kits. The FAA's own statement on the Starship, buried in a 2006 docket, calls it unsupported for continued airworthiness. Every logbook entry is a receipt for another part that will never be replaced. The Twin Beech followed the same script, just slower. A memo from Beechcraft's support division, dated May 1979, warned that Model 18 parts would be available only as surplus stocks permit. By 1990, the warehouse in Wichita was selling off wing spars and tail assemblies by the pallet. The last full set of Pratt & Whitney R985 overhauls cleared out before the millennium. No AD or press release was needed, just a shrinking stack of inventory sheets and a growing list of grounded serial numbers. Surplus. Robert Scherer summed it up years later: "You do not need a grounding order when the last part leaves the shelf." The Starship and Twin Beech did not wait for the FAA's kill list. They disappeared the old-fashioned way, sold for scrap, logged in a manifest, and erased from the supply chain before the regulators could even write the obituary. Only 2 shops in the country still hold FAA approval to overhaul the Lycoming IGSO-480 and IGSO-540 engines that power the Queen Air. The rest have either surrendered their tooling or let their Part 145 certificates lapse for these types. FAA's own repair station. Data Portal, as of May 2025, lists just Aviation Maintenance Solutions in Wichita and Miller Aircraft Services in Phoenix with current IGSO overhaul authorization. Every other name is gone, either marked inactive or deleted outright. That is not a trend, that is a countdown. The Queen Air's engines have always been a specialized breed, geared, supercharged, and built for a time when 100 LL was cheap and overhaul shops were plentiful. The IGSO 480 and IGSO 540 demand unique jigs, legacy test stands, and a level of institutional memory that is evaporating with each retiring mechanic. Lycoming stopped new production decades ago. No factory cores, no new crankcases, no fresh cylinder runs. What is left is a scavenger hunt for used parts and a pair of shops willing to take the liability. Every overhaul becomes a negotiation. Can you find a serviceable crank? Will the cam pass inspection? If not, the engine sits, the airframe sits, and the logbook closes for good. A search through supplier directories and overhaul logs tells the rest. In 2010, there were 6 shops. By 2018, only 4. In 2025, just 2. Each time a shop drops out, the price goes up, the waitlist grows, and the chance of an owner keeping a Queen Air flying shrinks. The overhaul capacity is not just thin, it is brittle. If either of these remaining shops closes, the Queen Air's practical airworthiness vanishes overnight. Airworthy becomes a technicality, not a reality. Owners have started swapping war stories on forums, engines stranded for months, parts hoarded in basements, quotes that read like ransom notes. There is no safety net. FAA's regulatory clock does not care if you cannot find a shop, miss an airworthiness directive deadline, fail to overhaul on time, or present a non-compliant engine for inspection, and the aircraft is grounded. The paperwork does not ask about shop scarcity, it only asks for proof of compliance. This is the Orphan proof in black and white. The Queen Air is not being regulated out of existence by a headline ban. It is being starved out of the overhaul ecosystem, one surrendered certificate at a time. When only 2 shops stand between a fleet and extinction, airworthy is just a temporary condition. The next airworthiness directive or lost mechanic could finish the job. The warning is clear, the kill list does not wait for a formal order. It waits for the last shop to turn off the lights. A Travel Air sits on jacks, its wings stripped to the bones, the logbook open to a single line. AD950403, spar web cracks, mandatory doubler kit. The owner stares at a quote, 80 hours of labor, $14,000 in parts, and a warning from the shop. If the tolerances are not perfect, the structure fails inspection and the aircraft never flies again. The doubler kit is a one-way ticket. Pass, and the airplane limps on. Fail, and the only thing left is a pile of receipts and a tail number headed for deregistration. A Wichita AMO veteran, 30 years on the line, puts it without ceremony. The AD does not care if you cannot afford it. Miss the compliance window, you are done. You cannot sell it, you cannot fly it, and the FAA will not listen to your story. The Baron 55 is next in the dock. Same AD, same spar web, but this time the job fails midstream. The center section reveals hidden corrosion, the repair estimate doubles, then triples, then becomes a phone call. We can keep cutting, but you are past the point of no return. The owner walks away, leaving a half-gutted fuselage and a mechanic's invoice that reads like a forfeiture notice. The airplane is technically repairable, but the numbers have already made the decision. T-34 mentors line up for annuals, each one facing the shadow of AD 2001 1318R1. After 2 fatal wing separations, the FAA ordered repetitive ultrasonic inspections and a Raytheon repair kit that costs more than the airplane's resale value. Compliance is not optional. Miss an inspection, and the airworthiness certificate is invalidated. Owners have started parting out their mentors, selling what is left to keep a handful flying. The NTSB docket does not mince words. Fatigue cracks are not a theory, they are a statistical certainty. The V-tail Bonanza's magnesium ruddervators are a case study in regulatory deadlock. The FAA's 1994 Airworthiness Directive mandates inspection and reinforcement, but the original skins have not been produced in decades. Corrosion is inevitable. The American Bonanza Society has posted a $500,000 bounty for a certified replacement, but no STC exists. Every year, more V-tails are grounded for lack of a single part. The Airworthiness Directive binder grows thicker, the parts shelf grows bare. This is not a cycle of maintenance, it is a conveyor belt to forced retirement. The directives are written in legal code, but the outcome is clear in the shop: comply or disappear. Each Airworthiness Directive is a deadline, each service bulletin a toll gate. The FAA's no-crack policy leaves no room for negotiation. When the cost of compliance exceeds the value of the aircraft, the choice is made for you. The only thing left is the paperwork. The invoice lands with a thud. $120,000 per engine to overhaul a Lycoming TIO-541. That's the price to keep a Duke B-60 running, if you can even get a slot. The shop's letter spells it out: deposit up front, parts on back order, and no promise of future support once 100LL disappears. Owners from Kansas to California hear the same thing. After 2029, you'll need luck or a blank check to keep flying. For the Musketeer and Sport, the story is already over. Continental's i0346 engine has no new cylinders, no factory cores, no certified alternatives. The last production run ended decades ago. What's left are scavenged parts and engines limping through annuals. Owners swap cylinders like currency, searching for anything that might pass inspection. Continental's official line was simple: cylinder production discontinued. No further support. The fleet is being orphaned by its own design. Sundowner and Sierra owners face a slower end. Their Lycoming 0360 and I-0360 engines can burn UL94. But the airframe-specific castings and plenums are extinct. When a duct cracks or a casting corrodes, the answer is a polite no from the parts counter. Some owners have turned to 3D printed replacements, filing for FAA-approved AMOC approvals just to keep flying. In 2028, one approval code allowed a batch of additively manufactured plenums, but the process is neither quick nor cheap. Each workaround is a risk, and every year the odds get worse. Insurance underwriters see the pattern. Memos for 2027 through 2029 set new terms: proof of AD compliance, documented overhaul within TBO, and evidence of fuel compatibility for any renewal. One owner's 2028 renewal notice reads, coverage contingent on documented compliance with FAA fuel transition and AD schedule. Miss a step and the plane is uninsurable and unsellable. The kill list is not rumor. It's a spreadsheet, a docket, a stack of invoices. 10 Beechcraft models: Duke, Musketeer, Sundowner, Bonanza, Baron, Queen Air, Model 18, Travel Air, T-34, and Starship. Each faces its own guillotine, but all share the same deadline. Comparable models, like the Cessna 210, the Piper Saratoga, and the Mooney Bravo, stand in line. This is not a regulatory ban. It is forced retirement by arithmetic, written in red ink. When the cost of staying legal passes the value of the airplane, the decision is already made. One fact stands unvarnished. By 2029, 10 Beechcraft models face extinction, not by decree, but by the slow bleed of enforcement, fuel, and supply. The G36 and G58 were just the first bodies on the ramp. For owners, this is not theory, it is a scheduled execution. The pattern is set. Ignore it, and the next kill list will have your aircraft's name on it. Drop your war stories or warnings below.